Council regular meeting for November 17th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Make sure you mute or turn off your cell phone or other electronic devices. It might make noise. And also, if you can remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking, you might help improve the sound quality of the meeting. Okay, I've got to ask Rob to do a roll call for attendance.
Thank you. Trustee Apatow.
Here.
Trustee Kripe.
Here.
Trustee Dearborn.
Here.
Trustee Coladarchi.
Here.
Trustee Lampier.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yeah.
And President Rins, I'm sorry.
Here. All right, item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Trustee Dearborn to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We're going to get the flag. There we go. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the
the
flag
flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with justice
liberty and justice
for all.
Thanks, Bob. All right, item number 3, quorum. Rob or Kristen, you want to check on quorum?
Sure. This Thursday, November 19th, special meeting, next budget review. Everybody plan to attend? Okay, good. And then Monday, the 23rd, study session on stormwater financing.
Yep.
Looks good, thank you. And then our first regular meeting in December is December 1st,
Yes.
right after the holiday. Okay, terrific. Thank
Okay.
you.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Rob. All right, item number 4, public comment. Kristen, just double checking, has anybody either submitted emails or is in the waiting room to provide some personal thoughts on items not in the agenda this evening?
There have been no public comments submitted in advance of the meeting, nor are there any members of the public in attendance in the Zoom meeting.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll close up public comment and move on to reports. Anybody have a report? You could raise your hand. Otherwise, I won't go through the roll call. Not seeing any reports. Village attorney, any report?
No report tonight.
Okay. Village manager
No report this evening.
and village president, I have no report this evening. Item 6, approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Coladarchi.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
Trustee Lampier.
Yes.
And it carries.
That motion carried. Thanks. I'll now ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of village council minutes for November 5th, regular virtual meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated October 30th through November 12th, 2020, in the amount of $675,779.59. Ordinance number MC5 2020, amending the village code to create the Department of Engineering and a Director of Engineering for introduction and adoption. Resolution number R71 2020, Safe Built Contract Extension, and resolution number R72 2020, Public Works Uniform Contract for adoption.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So
So move. Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Coladarchi.
Yes.
Trustee Lampier.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Kripe.
Yes.
Great, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're on to item number 8, which is the budget review. And this evening, we're picking up where we left off last time with David Schoen, who's going to present the business the community development and business district revitalization budgets that we deferred last time. So we'll start out with David and let him lead the way. David, are you going to do one, and then we'll work through that, and then come back and do the second one?
Correct. Yes, please.
Is that how you're set up? Okay, great.
Good
Or-
evening.
Good evening.
As Kristen pulls up the presentation, the community development budget is found on tab 8 of the budget. So we'll start off with an overview of the department. The department is responsible for these 4 areas. Planning and zoning includes long-range planning. That includes development and implementation of plans such as the downtown plan, comprehensive plan. Planning and zoning activities also include short-range planning activities, which involves the public review process for special use permits, variations, subdivisions, plan development, certificates of appropriateness, and demolition permits. Also in this area, staff is involved with building permits, reviewing them for their compliance with zoning requirements. The second area is building construction activity. The department coordinates the review and issuance of building permits, and that includes reviewing the plans and inspecting the work. We also coordinate with other departments the review of those permits, such as fire and public works and engineering. The third area is code enforcement, which involves enforcement of construction site management rules, property maintenance regulations, and other code compliance items. The fourth area is food service compliance. The department does annual inspections of establishments that serve food. And then also when there's a new food establishment involved in the review of the plans and inspection of the improvements to make sure they comply with all food safety requirements. The other area that we're involved with as we coordinate with the village manager's office is on economic development activities, assisting existing and potential businesses with their activities in the community. The department consists of 7 full-time village employees. In addition, we have contractual services with Safe Built, which this evening you just renewed our agreement with them to provide building code plan review and inspection services. And then we also have a contract with Health Inspection Professionals, and they provide assistance with food safety plan reviews and inspections. Goals and objectives, accomplishments. Whoops, I'm sorry, Kristen. Next slide. Next slide. Accomplishments this year, a major one was working through the pandemic, working with businesses and institutions, whether it's schools with temporary tents or restaurants trying to expand their outdoor dining options. Staff has spent a considerable amount of time assisting businesses and institutions during the pandemic. Also during the pandemic, building permits and inspections during the early shutdown, we had to quickly adapt our processes where we started to accept smaller permits electronically and even conducting some inspections virtually through the use of such software as FaceTime and other video conferencing software. The other thing that took a considerable amount of time was switching to virtual board and commission meetings. the department staffs, 5 boards and commissions. Early on, as we were learning how to operate during these times, there's a lot of changing rules in terms of the conduct of meetings, which took us a while to adapt, which we did. And it has also taken a considerable amount of time to make sure that applicants and the public can participate and know how to participate virtually and other ways during this time. Also this year, a major accomplishment has been working with the village manager's office and the Public Works Department to complete phase 1 and 2 streetscape improvements and to start to prepare for phase 3 for next year. The comprehensive plan effort started at the end of last year. As we all know, in March, with the beginning of the pandemic, we put it on hold for a while and waited to see how things would progress, and decided to continue to have it on hold until after the first of the year. Another goal that was identified during the downtown master planning process was to hold board and commission training sessions. And we just recently completed our last training session with our last board a couple of weeks ago. In terms of goals and objectives for the coming year, again, after the first of the year, our plans and hopes are in some way to get ready to restart the comprehensive plan. In terms of the downtown master plan, we'll continue to work on streetscape implementation, the phase 3 on Lincoln Avenue, and also some wayfinding and directional signage implementation. And we also look forward to working again with the Village Council on redevelopment opportunities for the 93 Green Bay Road. We anticipate after the first of the year that the One Winnetka site will have completed its foreclosure process early in the first quarter. And shortly thereafter, then work with whomever should have the rights to redevelop the site and move forward with the revitalization of that area of the downtown. And then the last item I would mention, in 2019, we adopted a more current set of model code regulations. What we would also like to do is look at our other building and development regulations and see what we may need to do to update and tweak those. So the budget we're presenting you this evening for community development, the 2021 budget has a decrease in planned expenses of approximately $24,000 over the 2020 budget year, or a 1.4% decrease. And I'll go over the 2021 budget in the next slides. So, as you can see here in the graph, salary and benefits make up 50% of the budget. The rest is 57% of the budget. The rest is service and supplies, which are broken down into these 3 major categories. One being legal services. To remind the council, the retainer for Elrod Freeman for the entire village is budgeted in the community development budget. Along with that, we budget some additional dollars for non-retainer legal expenses. In terms of third-party services, I have another slide to go over that. And then the last category are other services and supplies, which consist of a variety of expenses ranging from data processing, network charges, to training and travel, as well as the village has a fire sprinkler rebate program, which we budget $10,000 a year for. This allows a business that's going into a space, which is a change of use of that space, to apply for a rebate of their permit fees associated with that project. In terms of third-party services, our contract with Safe Built makes up nearly 50% of that amount. We've also budgeted $1,000 next year to continue to $100,000 next year to continue work on the comprehensive plan. And then the other categories are listed there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions later. In terms of permit revenues, when we prepared the budget for this year, we were projecting permit revenues to be down this year, approximately $124,000. Since then, as the years progressed, we're seeing improvement in those revenue numbers, and so they are moving in a good direction. Next slide. In terms of building permits, in terms of overall building permits, this includes a major permit from a new home to fence permit. A fence permit we anticipate will be at about the same number as last year. However, I would note the major permits consisting of new structures, additions, remodelings, both residential and commercial, are down this year by about 12.5%. Though major permits are down overall, the number of new home permits through October is actually up this year compared to last year. Last year, there were 11. This year, we've issued 18. Next slide. So overall summary, the budget is 1.71 million, a decrease of 24,000 or 1.4%, a slight increase in salaries and benefits, and a decrease in services and supplies. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for David?
David, just a brief question. Why are all legal services put into your budget?
The retainer is put in community development, and Rob can elaborate on that, but my understanding is that a good bulk of Holland and Knight services are spent on land development issues, assisting us with preparation of legal documents associated with variations, special permits, guiding us through those processes.
That is correct. Historically, this is where we have accounted for the retainer. Since we brought Elrod Friedman online back full-time really in 15, 14 was a transition year. At this point, it really kind of reflected the way in which we were accounting for legal services previously, and it seems to be working for now. So that's the answer, Trustee Caladarchi.
Thank you.
Hey, David, on the comp plan, so did we not have Lakota do any work in 2020 on that?
Yes, they did do work in 2020. The first quarter, we were getting ready. We did a fair amount of public engagement in terms of focus groups, interviews. We were just getting ready to move into a community open house. And in fact, that weekend before was the shutdown.
So was 100,000, is that what we budgeted last year, or are we just rolling that forward? Do we pay some of that last year?
So we anticipate needing to start up again. We're going to have to do some refresh with the work. So we have budgeted $100,000 for next year for the effort.
Okay.
I guess the
okay.
question is, how much did we not spend last year? Since we put it on hold.
We did not spend last year, that was budgeted for last year was 40,000. We did not but spend last year.
And were we supposed to have finished this year?
No, it was going to go into the first quarter of next year.
And how much was allocated for the first quarter?
The first quarter of next year.
Total contract was like 170, right? David, somewhere around? there?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So, I was talking to Becky Hurley a little bit about this, and, given that the circumstances have changed, obviously with COVID, and, it's represented one of those sort of blips or not blips, but one of those economic transition points. So the question is, are we going to have to redo? I mean, I know obviously there's the refresh part, just to get going again, but are there any components that really we need to really revisit because the trend lines are different in terms of the anticipated behavior and what people want? Having spent 9 months using the village in a very different way, people may think about the village in a different way. So I don't know if this is the time for the conversation, but I was just curious in terms of what the expectations are in terms of what kind of, in order to have a useful plan, what do we need to redo?
Yeah, and those are good questions, because those were questions about how do we even try to move forward during this time with the comprehensive plan, and
Right.
and where community members' thoughts are about looking towards the future. So
Right.
we do anticipate that we will need to spend some time looking at the market data research that was done, obviously leading up to this time. And we'll stop and look at the input that we received through the focus groups and the interviews. But our next step is, once we refresh that data, is to continue to work on that community outreach. And so we may need to do an extra step in there before that public meeting to re-gauge the situation.
Yeah. I think it would be, I don't want to necessarily advocate spending more money, but I think to be a really useful document, I think that we are going to need to check back in with people to make sure that, sort of the values and stuff they express beforehand are still valid. So anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. I had one other question, but now I can't remember what it was.
While
get back
Penny's
to you.
thinking there, David, while Penny's been deep thought of that next question,
Hey, Bob,
yeah, Chris?
John was waving.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
It doesn't really matter. I got a very easy question, hopefully. Do you have an easy number to know what percentage of those attorney fees are actually reimbursed through projects?
We can follow up with that. Most of the redevelopment work was set up as a reimbursable. That was particularly on the plan development for One Winnetka. Peter, there was also some reimbursable with respect to the code enforcement, right? If you would like to elaborate a little bit on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, on One Winnetka, the development agreement and our code now require an escrow for the developer to reimburse the village for its legal fees. On the code complaint, the statute allows the village to recoup its legal fees at the end of the case, after the judge has found that there was a violation of the code. We filed a motion for summary judgment 2 days ago in that case, in which we're seeking on behalf of the village for the reimbursement of some of those legal fees.
So I think the follow-up question would be then, the budget probably does not include any of the future projects that would have retained reimbursable personnel fees. Does that make sense?
The reimbursables that are known would be accounted for, but those projects that have not yet been filed, no, we would not have the reimbursables budgeted or accounted for since they're unknown.
Right, so for the most part, this legal budget is normal operating
Yes.
legal for the village.
It
Okay.
is, yeah, very much in
Great.
line. As David mentioned, we did budget some additional legal fees for the various pieces of litigation that comes our way throughout the year that I know the council knows about. That's outside of the normal retainer.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
How much money are we trying, I'm sorry, how much money are we trying to recoup?
I'll follow up with you. We can follow up with the village council on the actual recoup.
That'd be great.
And we'll pull that together as part of our follow-up list. I do know that when a few months ago, when there was a presentation for potential rework of that project, we made sure that all the outstanding legal fees and utility costs were paid before that group had an opportunity to present. So we were able to, anything that was left there from the previous developer was pretty well cleaned up before they were allowed to present.
Great. Good.
Bob,
Thanks, Chris. David, what do you anticipate to be the timing for streetscape presentation and implementation phase 3?
That's the next presentation, Trustee Dearborn, in Business District.
Okay, we can wait on that. And then what, Liz, the Economic Development Department or whatever, Liz, where does she fall in on this? Which department is that accounted for?
That will be presented on Thursday. Kristen will be
Okay.
presenting that budget.
Got it. What department is that? Is that manager's office? What is
Manager's
that?
office in an economic development division. She's not budgeted in community development.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Andy, anything from you?
Yeah, it may be in one of the upcoming sessions. Any discussion about doing a second round of relief for our local businesses and other COVID-related help for them, whether it's the little plastic huts or tents or whatever? Where would that fall? Your manager's office?
Yeah, being the manager in the economic development budget, we are closely monitoring the existing sales tax rebate program, and the cutoff is December 1st. We'll see how much of those funds are expended. If there are funds left over from the original 400,000 allocation, we may be coming back to you for another look at how to use those funds.
Yeah, Wilmette just came out
Right
with a
now,
round for just restaurants.
The
Sorry,
$100,000, Kristen, has been spent so far? You're muted, Kristen.
I'm sorry, could you ask the question again, Rob? You kind of
Sure.
broke up there.
So to date, the economic development sales tax rebate program has expended approximately $180,000.
Let me call up the exact number for you.
Should be close. I know it's just under
Right,
two.
it's 195,000
Okay.
once the allocations that were submitted in the warrant list tonight are approved. So
Gotcha.
as of tonight's meeting, it's 195,000.
Okay, and that was about 15 per tonight, if I remember correctly.
And then-
I just wanted to say that Wilmette just announced a second round for just restaurants only. But
Yeah.
interestingly enough, word is that their application process was so challenging that they could only push out $149,000 of the first round. So I think the simplified application that Rob and his team put together really helped us get the money out and make it as painless as possible. But that's a good point, Andy. If there's money left over, a little sloshing around the bucket, this might be the time to start talking about it for sure.
Yeah, because they're getting hit again. And then, David, you might be able to answer this, or you might need to check, but I'm just curious how things are going on the sprinkler rebate program. I remember we had a lot.
Oh, right.
of question on
yeah.
that. Are people installing sprinklers? Is the program serving its purpose? Does it need more?
It is serving its purpose. Now, remember, the key is that it's when a change of use is requiring the installation of sprinklers. We
Yeah,
haven't had anyone request it this year,
okay.
but I think it is a beneficial program for us to have when we do have those situations, working with landlords, when they want to change a use, to have that tool available for them.
It just,
Yeah.
again, maybe something for longer term consideration. When we did that, that seemed like a reasonable approach during that change of use process. But at the same time, we did want to see more sprinklers go in. And so at some point, if we're not really seeing more sprinklers going in, we don't want our whole downtown district going into flames. It's just something to keep on the radar. If we need to do something more proactive, we should probably plan on discussing that.
This is
Okay.
probably a tough year for assessment, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in Cook County, the commercial property owners are taking a double hit. Obviously, the good landlords are working out terms with their tenants on COVID relief. And that really is taking up a lot of any excess capital. And you got to remember that it's mostly the landlords that would be pushing forth to do this, maybe in preparation for leasing to an alternative use. So I'm not sure how much money you could dangle out there and make people interested until we get through this crazy mess we're in and things start to stabilize a little bit. Yeah, Rob?
I was thinking about that, and there's two ways to do it. One is kind of throw some more money at it, which I'm not against, depending upon. I just don't know what the real health is of these businesses. And I thought the Happen was doing good, and I heard rumblings that the Happen may be having issues. And that's you'd hate to see something like that go, even though it's not in Winnetka. But I guess I'm trying to understand. I was kind of spitballing this idea, which is I just don't know how much business they need. Is it 40 meals a night? Is it 20 meals a night? I'm just trying to understand if we try and, because I don't think everybody thinks, oh, they're doing fine. They were kind of busy when I was over there. There are a lot of people picking up food. I just don't know what it takes and what these people really need as a business. And I don't know if we're that close to their business from a standpoint of what the landlords are doing with them. Is there any other way we can be of service to try and help people, remind people to go ahead, that this restaurant needs 30 meals a night to succeed. And surely in a town this large or in other towns, we can, people had an understanding of what that was, they might be more apt to continue to order up, once or twice more a week to make these businesses go.
Kristen, do you want to address that with the promotions that Josie and Liz are working on?
Sure. So we have been trying to promote restaurants and the takeout and carry out options. We actually created with our GIS support an interactive map that shows all the restaurants and towns that have takeout. We've been doing Takeout Tuesday as a marketing plan. And then most recently, the idea was to come up with a punch card, so to speak, of all of the restaurants in town and incentivize residents to visit different ones, similar to a bingo card, but not bingo. So that, because anyone who plays bingo knows the restaurant that gets the free square, that's the premium square. So we had to be cognizant of placement on the punch card. So that residents would be incentivized not only to support the restaurants, but spread the dollars around to the multiple wonderful options that we have in town. So that's close to being realized. We're still working on the graphic aspect of it and how specifically it would work, but we are moving forward with targeted marketing to specifically encourage our residents to, during this time of takeout, take out as much as your budget allows to support the local restaurant.
But do we know what do we know? I guess I don't know the health of these businesses. I mean, I don't know. Are we close to denting the fact they're profitable, or are we just way off? Or I'm just don't know. I have no clue.
Trustee Apatow, we're typically not privy to that kind of information, and they're not going to share it typically. If they want to come forth with, say, hey, it's going to take this amount of business per night, we'd be happy to promote it. We could certainly ask, but that kind of information is, the government's usually the last one that gets it. We get sales, we get data that reflects their sales, like in sales tax data, but that's about it.
That might be an interesting question to ask, and I don't know if the chamber would know, but roughly how many, takeout meals or whatever do restaurants need a night to remain a going concern? It may or may not work, but it would be an interesting question to ask.
Sure. Could be part of Liz's ongoing engagement with them to kind of
Yeah.
get a sense of where their thresholds are.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But
You
we don't have that, in terms of our data set here, we don't have that type of.
No,
metric.
I didn't,
Sure.
I didn't think you would, but it might be interesting to few
Yeah.
might volunteer to say, we're trying to help. The bingo card's what do you get if you fill out the bingo card? What do you get from the village?
So that's what we're
Dinner with
still
Chris
working
Rentz?
on.
That's a great idea. I really like that.
What the
No one's gonna eat out.
price would be. So we're still working on that. We're open to suggestions. So what would motivate you, Trustee Epitoff, to visit 10
Rentz.
restaurants?
Besides dinner with Chris, I don't know, you're riding the parade on the 4th of July, something, it doesn't have to be monetary. It could be fun with you and your family, get to do a special float or something. I don't know. Something that could be distinctly when that kind of fun.
Right. Okay. Well,
If
we're
I could add-
working on- Yes.
If I could add a couple things, I work with a restaurant pretty closely, and a typical day without COVID, and this is only a breakfast lunch, they do about 600 people a day during the week, 1,200 on the weekends. If you take the 600 people during the week, let's assume 30% profit. Well, they need 70% of that 600 people buying carryout. So it's a big number. It's not 30, 40 meals. It's hundreds.
That also
Um,
doesn't include alcohol, John. I mean, they make their money on,
Well, this
Right.
one, this is a breakfast lunch and there's very little alcohol.
oh,
But yeah,
okay.
you're right. I mean,
Okay.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not like, 40 meals will make it work. They need a lot. So.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get a handle on what we really need to do here. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to Trustee Kripe's question about fire sprinklers. The other important aspect of the program is a deferred compliance
Right.
piece, which defers the cost if they want to do like the internal build out, which is less expensive than saying taking the water connection out to the street. They can do a deferred compliance and then push those costs on a little bit later.
Yeah.
And that we've actually seen that a couple of entities take advantage of that in recent years.
Good.
So how does that work out then? When do they then do the sprinklers?
Sure. David, remind me on the timeframes. It's usually recorded against the property where they're required to get it done in a certain window. of time.
Usually within 5 years.
Within 5 years, okay.
But the one that came about most recently was the former Gene Wright building on Chestnut. So when
Right.
we did the streetscape project and everything was opened up, it was very
Right.
economical for them to connect at that time.
Right. With, when we move, well, we can talk about it. Remind me when we move over to the downtown redevelopment about this. That's a good conversation. I have another question about the community development. Can I ask that now?
Yeah. Mhm.
David, I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit more about in terms of what you're doing relative to the local building and development regulations. I'm forgetting what that was all about.
It's looking at, we have some local regulations regarding sewer and water connections. We have some local regulations in terms of, we just want to review in terms of our building permits. They're typically good for 15 months. It's just doing a review of our standard regulations to see if there's any adjustments we want to make to them in terms
Okay,
of how we.
And
Go
so
ahead.
it's phase 2. So how is it phased? What else do you have in mind in terms of is there a phase 3 or where are you going with this?
No, it's just a phase 2. Phase 1 was
Okay.
adopting the more current model building codes.
Got it. Right. Okay. Terrific. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll call that done and.
Wait. I have one more question if nobody else has any. Sorry about that. I didn't want to hog it. I was just checking in terms of the timely turnaround with all of the third-party reviews in terms of our permits and stuff. That's going well, I presume?
Yes, it's going well. We're happy. That's
Okay.
why we renewed the agreements, both of them this year.
Okay, great, good. Okay, thank you.
Good now? Now on to business district revitalization.
Okay, next slide.
What tab is this, David?
This is in the CIP tab 23.
Thank you.
And so this is a fund that Public Works, Community Development, and the Village Manager's Office have projects out of. This is a list of the streetscape projects for next year. It includes completing the construction documents for phase 3 and the construction of phase 3. We also deferred, we had hoped to get to this year, a design concept for Hubbard Wood streetscape and evaluating a possible jurisdictional transfer. So we are looking to work on that next year. We also, as part of the downtown plan, had identified a gateway and wayfinding program. And we've been working on some revisions to that, and we'll be presenting those to the council in the not too distant future. And then the last item here is our annual maintenance repair fund of streetscape elements. Next slide. Then other projects for this year, we budgeted some to assist us with our efforts on redevelopment of 93 Green Bay Road. We've also put some funds in there this year for EV charging stations in the Lincoln Avenue lot and Hubbard Woods deck. We've also put in some funds for banners to further have placemaking in the downtown beyond just the winter holiday season, but to have banners throughout the rest of the year. And then we also have a small amount in the budget for any adjustments we make to parking regulations in the downtown and redoing any of those enforcement signs. The 5-year capital plan, then all the items in blue I just highlighted. In terms of the out year projects, we've included estimated dollar amounts for streetscape design and construction for the Elm Street Bridge, which is in the downtown plan. And then we've also included annual amounts for streetscape repair. We've included some dollar amounts for design work. That would be Green Bay Road between Pine and Oak, a concept design for what that may be. We've also included some funds in out years to look at the redevelopment of the post office site, which could include preparing for an RFP, doing any potential environmental remediation work or demolition of the property. We've just included some funds to get us started. The out years, however, we don't have dollar amounts yet for what it would cost to reconstruct Green Bay Road between Pine and Oak, because we don't have what that design would look like, because that could be tied to a possible jurisdictional transfer. So we would need to work that out with the state. And we don't have dollar amounts for the design and construction of Hubbard Wood streetscape improvements, again, because that's tied to whether or not it's a jurisdictional transfer. In terms of the fund itself, it is funded through 2 sources. There's a $550,000 transfer from the general fund for a couple of years. this year and next. We show that right now. And then we've also have budgeted 1.1 million that was previously funds that went to the refuse fund. But now that has become a user fee, we've been using the 1.1 million for reinvestment in our commercial district. I should note that we didn't include in here, but we should have, that in 2022, we should be receiving a $300,000 grant from the state capital bill, which Senator Fine secured for us. As you will note at the bottom, the ending cash balance, it does show a positive ending cash balance. However, as I previously noted, it doesn't include all costs for streetscape improvements. As I mentioned, Hubbard Woods streetscape or Green Bay Road and the Elm Street business. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Have at it, guys.
David, what's the, for the 93 Green Bay Road, the 50,000, what kind of capital work would you anticipate we'd have on the kick?
Again, sorry, Trustee Dearborn.
No, that's okay. I mean, we just seem to know the property and all the wards to it. I mean, what kind of, I don't know, Chris, you may have a thought on this. If, the next bidder comes along, next idea comes along, what kind of work does the village actually have to do to spend 50,000 on that?
Surveys, legal work, and probably some remediation too, right, David?
We still have remediation on that?
There's some closeout documentation and things we need to do with remediation. Also, if we decide if we want to take down the building before, it's to have an amount budgeted in anticipation that there will be some expenses that will incur for the redevelopment of the property.
Okay.
Hey, David, this may be baked in to the master planning process, but one of the priorities in the caucus survey this year, which had like a huge response overall, but there was like and maybe it's because everybody's home now, there's like a 75% support for the bike master plan.
Yeah.
Which I remember talking about a few years ago with a prior group of colleagues. Some of them were somewhat hostile to bicycles for some reason. I don't understand.
I thought they'd be coming tonight, Andy.
But given the fact that that is a high priority for our residents, is that baked into our master planning process, or can we start like getting that on the radar and kind of the long term, whether it's an item as part of streetscape, or I'm not sure where it lives, but it should live somewhere.
Let me give a crack at this. The bikeway plan was developed by the Winnetka Park District.
Right.
It had some areas with, if I recall, where there was collaboration between the Park District and the village to bring it about. I think we need to dust that off with them and revisit, and then program where those expenses might lie. I know that there was quite a bit of discussion about safe routes through the business districts. But I think we'd have to come back and dust it off and see where the responsibilities would shake out and who would take what part of the project forward.
Yeah, and if we could just, as you do that, maybe keep it in parallel with the master planning process, because that seems like the best coordinated way to kind of talk about that with other activities. There are some things, whether it's the Green Bay Trail renovation, which we could do with the Park District, but there's more than that. There's the roads, and some people were opposed to having roads that connected all the way through, but things as simple as getting clear lines painted. We've got so many cars now that have automated, autopilot, whether not just Tesla. And so they're reading those lanes. So we have those share roads right now, Sheridan Road.
Yeah.
Those are bad with Teslas and any kind of modern self-guided driving system because the car is centering between that painted line, which is on the other side of the bicyclist. So at a minimum, I'd like to see us start getting the lines painted on the right side of the bicyclist. And that's
Yes.
something we could probably do in coordination with our, and maybe I should have raised it during Steve's presentation, but in coordination with our street work.
Yeah. I think we have a public works rep that's listening in, so he'll take good notes.
Okay.
I would note that the Green Bay Trail evaluation it was deferred this year because of COVID and some
Right.
cost cutting, but it is loaded in the engineering budget for 2021.
Yeah,
Where we'll be
I saw
picking it up. So I know that there's that evaluation will identify not only some of the infrastructure improvements, access to the trail, access off the trail,
Yeah.
but also making it, drain better and all those other things so that, can accommodate the type of recreation down there that we'd like to see.
Yeah, and if we do like a jurisdictional transfer, we've got that on the radar for Green Bay Road. That's another opportunity. There's a big chunk of land on the east side of Green Bay Road before you get to the tracks that could be nice for that. So that this is like not a one and done kind of thing. It seems like it connects a lot of these points.
Right.
So
Andy, I would add, I actually heard from a member of the school board and their concern about safe biking to school. So I think it's actually, I think it needs to be a high priority for us. It would naturally be part of the comprehensive plan, but I'm not sure that we should necessarily wait to conclude that and implement it. We may need to be a little more proactive. So I've got some communication, but I think there's some.
sidewalk issue.
Pardon me?
Maybe you raised the sidewalk issue before.
Yeah,
And maybe this kind of relates to the, just
Definitely.
prioritizing safe
Right.
way, whether
Yes.
it's walking or biking.
right. I think it's really important. And
Right.
again, this is, this whole COVID thing has made us all a lot more aware of these things. And, that's part of what makes Winnetka. And I think that it's something that people really value about it. So I think it'll do us good in the long run if we pay attention to it. So
Rob,
that's
go
a
ahead.
good point.
You're on mute, Rob.
Trustee Apatow, you're muted.
I'm mute.
That was brilliant, Rob.
It's the best thing I said all night.
Vicky likes that.
I've heard from no fewer than 6 seniors that have been, one has been clipped and others have been almost clipped on the sidewalks of the business district. I'm a big bike advocate. I'm not looking to ban bikes, but I am looking, I think we need to come up with a common sense you have to walk your bike in the business district on the sidewalks. And I've talked to the police chief about it. Things are banned like skateboards and things. So I'm not looking to ban bikes, but there are, wonderful gangs of kids on bikes, which is great to see, but not on the sidewalks they're flying by as people coming out of the stores. Somebody will get clipped. And I think we need to pay attention to that at least for sure.
I know that he's following up on that, Trustee.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to ban them. I just want to just make them walk into business.
Well, or redirect them so they don't
Give
go
them a
through
safe
the
spot
business.
on the street would be,
Well, the part of it's that they want to hang out at Starbucks, Pete's, and
Yeah.
Lakeside.
not mall. So anyway, I'm sure that'll come up when we dig into this as a subject matter, either study session or some co-opted conversation with the park district. Bob, I know you had mentioned before that you were looking for an update, a schedule, and update on phase 3 in general. So David, can you kind of give us a snapshot of where we are today and what the timing looks like?
Sure. We are, in fact, meeting with the consultants tomorrow. Staff is to review 30% plans. Our goal would be in December or early January to bring back to council where we're at, having incorporated or having heard your thoughts during all of the recent discussions and incorporating elements into the plan. So we'd bring them back early in January. And the goal is still to do construction early spring, late March, early April, weather behaves. So that's what our goal is.
Any follow-up on that, Bob?
No, I think that's fantastic. That's what, that was the game plan. That's what we want to hear.
Right. Other questions for David? Penny?
Yeah, talking about the sprinkler issue, and as we're going into phase 3 over on East Elm, is there any point in reaching out to the landlords that have properties that aren't sprinklered to offer them the option of doing it now while the street's ripped up?
I think we could certainly follow up on that.
Yeah.
Here. I know we have an ongoing listing of who, where the sprinklers reside and where they do not. I know there's a couple of gaps over there, so we can certainly follow up.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any incentive for them to do it well. Everything's all ripped up anyway, but that might be worthwhile.
Yeah, if I remember, we did some service upgrades in phase 1 as well over on Chestnut. There was 1 or 2 stores that upgraded water services at that time with the intention of having enough juice for, to push the sprinkler. So,
Yeah.
There should be some outreach on that to make sure that we collect that while we can.
I'll have that on David's list to talk to the fire department, and we'll take a look at who's there.
Less ripping up or consolidating the rip up is a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, it's the opportune time to do it if there's a water service connection to be made.
Super.
Rob and David, question. So if someone from Hubbard Woods asks, what's the realistic timing of sprucing up and getting some work done up here? I mean, are we really looking out 3 years to complete that type of thing? That's in the TBD capital budget. I mean, is that with the jurisdictional transfer and plans? And so are we really, is that kind of what the response is or not?
I would say that a lot of this, there's the money that's funded for the design in 21, but it will require cooperation from the state of Illinois it's a negotiation for a jurisdictional transfer. And our goal is to get the state to pay for as much of that underlying infrastructure as possible to minimize our costs, which could be substantial when you start to look at it. But working with the state, they have a programmed CIP for their state-owned roads, and the trick is going to be getting them to move that up. If a jurisdictional transfer is negotiated and agreed upon, then the pressure is going to be, okay, how fast can we get the state to respond?
They are highly motivated though, because
They are.
for them, a one and done is a real attractive.
Right. And they've been known to do that. I've done a couple in my career. And if they can get a piece of roadway off of their inventory, they're very motivated to do that.
Yeah,
So do we have a game plan?
Willow
Chris?
Road.
Yeah, we do. We do, Bob. And I've been feathering my relationship over at IDOT to try to get the conversations going. But, with COVID,
Yeah, right.
this was something we were supposed to be talking about in April and May of this year.
Mhm.
And just getting people to respond until midsummer was next to impossible. So a lot of preoccupation with this COVID. And I think, to be honest with you, I think people that aren't on the front lines, some are taking advantage of not being so easy to get a hold of either. It's taken me weeks to get phone calls back on various items. So,
Mhm.
we'll keep pushing, but this is one of those conversations that's best to be had at the table, face to face, looking at the people and, exerting a little pressure to have them move your way too. So,
Is there any reason for them to not want to give up jurisdiction of the road?
money. Just, they don't have it, or it's not in their program budget, or they're too lazy, or they don't have the resources, or a lot of different things.
Yeah. Or there's priorities that are more important to them than this particular project, but they are generally motivated to remove assets off of their inventory. So they do the cost benefit analysis, when's their break even, and they tend to overbuild the transfer of roadway so that it entices the municipality to take it on for the long term.
So that stretch of Willow Road, that central stretch, sort of east central, was gosh, when was that jurisdiction? That was transferred. That was what, 20 years ago? But they rebuilt that section of Willow Road before they
Right.
turned it
And
over.
there's another one there from the western limits up by Provident that can be,
Right,
helpful for us in looking forward to that intersection.
right,
rebuild.
exactly.
The
Yeah.
key thing is to maintain control over the schedule, the money, the design, all that stuff. I mean,
Right.
if you ask them to do it, you're gonna get state spec everything, and we're gonna be aesthetically in far worse condition than we are right now. So the key thing is to get them to cough up the money and then let us decide how we're gonna spend it. And Rob, your experience and mine has been too, and I've seen this happen, is that, we're gonna have to come up with something because they won't pay for those nice Sternberg lights that we like to
Right.
use and things
Right.
of that nature. But,
Yeah.
it really, this is gonna be a negotiation, and it's gonna take some time.
We also don't want pot as our landscaping.
Right.
Never letting it go.
It's a cash crop. Oh, Lordy.
Come on.
But Bob, the bottom line is, once those conversations start, I think things will move, but it's a matter of getting the conversation started and making sure we're doing it in the right environment.
And we have it scheduled just in the, slotted to be determined over 3 years. That sounds like a lengthy, we're being conservative probably, I guess is what I'm hoping.
Yeah,
You know, the one thing that has occurred to me as I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and my mind drifts to this sort of thing is Hubbard Woods is going to be a tricky one, because if you guys remember what Sheridan Road looked like, both in Wilmette and Kenilworth, when they did the rebuild,
Right.
Rob is right, they overbuilt. There was a 4-foot excavation with epoxy coated reinforcement, and there's 4 feet of concrete under those roadways. It won't happen as quick as Chestnut Street for sure, and we really have to think hard about the impact of the business and how we work this so we don't screw everybody over just to have a nice environment at the end of the
Right.
day. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and clearly, how we phase it, and we should really engage the business owners too, to understand their cycles a little bit better, so maybe we can slip in between in the sweet spots. A lot of work to be done up there though, but it's on my mind and something I think about a lot.
It's also because when the traffic is redirected, it's going to go through school zones, so that's going to be tricky too.
Spoken like someone
Interesting.
who's on the school board, Penny.
Woohoo! Oh my
Other
gosh.
questions for David? John, I thought you'd have something tonight. You got nothing?
No,
He's in his
it
cave.
seems pretty clear. Seems pretty good.
Andy,
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Jack?
Thanks a lot. David.
Okay, we're good.
Dave, good work. Dave,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
It's been
David.
great.
That's great. So we're all caught up on budget, at least until Thursday, right, Rob?
Correct.
And can you give us a preview again of what we'll be talking about Thursday night?
Sure, we're gonna have
Take us
village
3.5 hours.
So we have finance department, village manager's office, including economic development. And we have the Brian Key show of water fund and the electric fund. And he is raring to go.
And don't disagree.
He was
with
ready to
me
go.
about
He was ready to go tonight, but we had to hold him.
If you disagree with Keys about anything, water mains start mysteriously exploding the next day. I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk about my water bill. It's outrageous.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Excellent.
Compare it with some of our neighbors and you won't feel so bad anymore. There's something I want to tell you.
Hey, Chris, I just want to note that the business section of this meeting took 6 minutes.
Congratulations.
This gave me flashbacks tonight. Does this come up the right way?
Yes.
I looked at this because I always use the old village binders to put my agendas in, right? And so I'm looking at this thing and it's like, I had this flashback, this horrendous flashback from the water main replacement study. So he's going to be a little bit more glib. than
Oh,
most.
come on. That was a good meeting.
All right,
was
we'll be
like
ready
that
on
kind of
Thursday.
stuff.
We'll deal with that. Unbelievable. All right, so that finishes up our regular business. My dummy sheet here. Yes, there's no public comment, right, Kristen?
No additional public comment, no members of the public in the Zoom meeting.
Well, great. My puppy gets a walk tonight then. All right,
Yay.
folks, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second?
Roll call vote?
Trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
Right. Oops. We couldn't wait to get out of here.
We are adjourned.
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. Thank you. We'll see you on
Thank you
Thursday.
all.